please don't do this. You don't have to do this.
Like and subscribe for more incredible stories of courage and quick thinking that changed everything. You won't believe what happened next. It was a cold November evening in 1954 at the Copacabana nightclub in New York City. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, expensive perfume, and danger. Dean Martin stood backstage, adjusting his tie, preparing for the performance of his life. But outside the backstage door waited something he never expected. A man in a dark suit approached him, not just any man, but Vincent "Vinny" Castellano, one of the most feared mob bosses in Manhattan. His reputation preceded him: ruthless, unpredictable, and willing to do anything to make a point. Dean reached into his pocket for his cigarettes. Spotting Vinny from across the room, he did what seemed natural. He asked for a light. But Vinny didn't pull out a lighter. Instead, he pulled out a loaded revolver and handed it to Dean with a cold smile. "Here's your light, kid," he said. The room went silent. Every eye was on Dean. His hands trembled for just a moment. Then, in a move that would become legend, Dean Martin smiled. And his response was pure genius. Dean Martin hadn't always been famous. Back in 1954, he was still climbing the ladder of entertainment. Born Dino Paul Crosetti in Steubenville, Ohio, Dean had worked his way up from nothing. His Italian heritage connected him to a world he understood, a world where respect was everything, and weakness meant disaster. But Dean wasn't weak. He was a performer who understood human nature better than most people understood themselves. Vincent Castellano was a different kind of man. At 58, he had built a criminal empire that stretched across New York. He controlled nightclubs, restaurants, and the people who worked in them. Everyone feared him. Politicians knew his name. Police officers looked the other way when he walked by. His word was law, and his anger could destroy lives. The Copacabana was one of his favorite establishments. It was where he came to relax, to enjoy entertainment, and to remind people of his power. When Dean Martin was booked to perform there that November evening, Vinny saw it as an opportunity, not just to enjoy a show, but to test the young performer. Why did Vinny want to test Dean? Nobody really knows. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he wanted to see if this smooth-talking Italian kid from Ohio would crack under pressure. Maybe he just wanted to remind everyone in the room that he was the real star, the real power in that building. The tension backstage was unbearable. The band was warming up. The audience was filling the tables. Cocktails were being served. Everything was perfect for a great show. But Dean had no idea that his casual request for a light would turn into the most dangerous moment of his life. When Vinny handed Dean the loaded gun with that cold smile, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 30 degrees. Everyone could sense what was happening. This was a power play. This was Vinny saying, "I own this moment. I own you." Dean's heart was pounding. He could feel the weight of the gun in his hand, cold, metal, dangerous. His mind raced through possibilities. One wrong move, one sign of fear, and Vinny might see him as weak. In that world, weakness was worse than death. It meant humiliation. It meant your career was over. It meant you'd never be respected again. The other people in the room, stagehands, musicians, even some of Vinny's own men, held their breath. They were watching to see how Dean would respond. Would he drop the gun and run? Would he cry? Would he beg? Any of those reactions would have given Vinny exactly what he wanted. Proof that this young entertainer was just another scared kid who didn't belong in his world. Dean's hands were trembling, but not from fear. They were trembling because he understood the situation perfectly. This was a test. This was a moment that would define him. He could feel every eye in the room watching, waiting. Vinny's men were watching too, hands ready in case things went wrong. The mob boss himself was leaning back slightly, that dangerous smile still on his face. He was enjoying this. He was testing Dean the way a predator tests its prey. The silence lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Dean looked at the gun in his hand. Then he looked at Vinny. Then, to everyone's shock, he did something unexpected. His lips curved into a smile. Not a nervous smile. A real, confident smile. "This is nice, Vinny," Dean said, his voice steady as a rock. "Really nice. But I got to be honest with you, it's a little too fancy for a light. The room was so quiet you could hear ice cubes clinking in glasses across the nightclub. Then something miraculous happened. Dean's comment hung in the air for just a moment before Vinny's expression changed. The dangerous edge in his face softened. His eyes, which had been cold as ice, suddenly showed something else, respect. And then, incredibly, he started to laugh. It wasn't a mocking laugh. It was genuine, real. The kind of laugh that comes when you realize you've just been outsmarted by someone you underestimated. You got guts, kid, Vinny said, still laughing. He took the gun back from Dean's hand. You're all right. You're actually all right. The entire room seemed to exhale at once. The tension that had been suffocating everyone suddenly lifted like a weight had been removed. But Vinny wasn't done. He leaned in closer to Dean, and for a moment, the danger returned. Dean's heart skipped a beat. What was coming next? Was this another test? That's exactly what I needed to see, Vinny said, his voice low enough that only Dean could hear. You didn't panic. You didn't beg. You didn't show weakness. You made a joke out of it. That takes real strength, kid. He placed his hand on Dean's shoulder, a gesture that meant respect. In that world, a hand on your shoulder from a mob boss could mean life or death. In this case, it meant something precious, approval. Go out there and do your show, Vinny commanded. And make it good. I'm watching. Dean walked out onto that stage with his heart still pounding, but his mind clear. The audience had no idea what had just happened backstage. They just saw Dean Martin walking out with his signature confidence, ready to perform. And perform he did. That night's show became legendary. Dean was brilliant. He was charming. He was funny. He was everything an entertainer could be. And throughout the entire performance, Vinny Castellano sat at his table in the back, watching with a smile on his face. When Dean finished his final song and took his bow, Vinny led the applause. It was the approval of a dangerous man, but it was real. After the show ended and the audience began to leave, Dean stood backstage again. This time, Vinny approached him differently. There was no threat in his posture, no danger in his eyes. You want to know something? Vinny said. That gun wasn't loaded. Not a single bullet. Dean's eyes widened. You're kidding. Nope. I wanted to see what you'd do when you thought you were holding real power. Would you use it against me? Would you run? Would you panic? Vinny shook his head. But you didn't do any of that. You stayed calm. You made a joke. You understood that real power isn't about fear. It's about confidence. He extended his hand, and Dean shook it firmly. You've got a job here whenever you want it, kid, Vinny said. And anyone gives you trouble in this city, you tell them you're under my protection. Got it? Dean nodded, not quite believing what had just happened. What happened that night at the Copacabana taught Dean Martin something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the ability to stay calm when everything around you is threatening to fall apart. The story spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Other entertainers heard about what Dean had done. They heard how he'd faced down a mob boss and come out not just alive, but respected. His career took off from that moment. He became known not just as a talented entertainer, but as someone with real backbone. Years later, Dean would tell this story to younger performers. Never let them see you break, he'd say. When life hands you danger, you smile at it. You acknowledge it. But you don't let it own you. The lesson of that night was universal. It wasn't just about dealing with mob bosses. It was about dealing with anyone who tried to intimidate you. It was about understanding that the people who test you are often the same people who will respect you most if you pass the test. Throughout his career, Dean Martin faced many challenges. But he always remembered that cold November evening in 1954 when a loaded gun, or an empty one, became the most important lesson he ever learned. That true strength comes from inside, from your ability to stay calm when everything is threatening to destroy you. Years after that night, Vinny Castellano and Dean Martin developed a real friendship. Vinny would come to Dean's performances regularly. He'd sit in the back and watch with pride. Their relationship was never exactly normal. There was always that history between them, but it was based on something solid, mutual respect. When Vinnie passed away in the early 1970s, Dean attended his funeral. He sat in the back, quiet and respectful, remembering that young man he'd been in 1954, remembering the choice he'd made to stay confident instead of breaking under pressure. The gun that may or may not have been loaded became one of the most famous props in Hollywood history. Not because it was dangerous, but because of what it taught everyone who heard the story. That sometimes, the only real power you have is the power to stay calm, to think clearly, and to respond with grace under pressure. That's the power that made Dean Martin a legend. Not just his voice, not just his talent, but his ability to face danger and come out smiling. Call to action. If this story of incredible courage and quick thinking inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more amazing stories just like this one. Share your own experience in the comments below. Have you ever faced a moment where staying calm changed everything? Your story might inspire thousands of others. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next incredible tale. See you in the next video, ***.